Yeah, hi, good morning. So today generally we were discussing the topics of C++. Like in the last sessions, as we saw that how the C++ program can be written and what are the variables, what are the different types of keywords we can use, what do you mean by an array and how the arrays can be used, and the basic concepts like without object oriented programming, those are all we have been completed, right? So the main topics what we actually required, those will be recorded from today's session. So we were covering all the object oriented programming concepts from here. Okay, so first of all, let's discuss how this object oriented programming can be defined and how we can work on it. So let's start with one program. So I'm opening a Visual Studio here. So let me run the Visual Studio. Okay, I'm taking as administrator so that I may not get any issues when creating the project with any permissions. So let me see here. You can see this is C++. I have selected here Windows because I'm using a Windows machine, and type of application which I'm developing here is console. So here you have two options. Either you can use empty project from scratch, you can do it and you can add the CPP file there and you can work on it. Okay, or either you can go with what console app and you can do from here. So any one is better to handle, so whichever you flexible you can do it. So I'm using console app which already have one hello world by default. So let me start it. So next, and it's asking me to give the program name. So as we are doing the object oriented programs, so I will do one thing. I will write the program name as CPP obj1. Okay, so this is a object oriented one program. Okay, so just this is my project name. Okay, so in this project I will get one CPP program. Okay, this is my project name. If not, I can write here CPP object oriented programs, right? So we can do any of the things, that's not a issue. So I can write here CPP object oriented program. Okay, so whatever the flexible names you want, you can use it. So I'm using just now short name CPP object. Okay, create. Now what will happen, it will create a project, and within the project it will provide us a few things that already as I discussed. So it came up with a hello world program. Okay, it's a standard program which is created by default automatically, and this is all like comments provided. So what actually happened and how this program is running and all. So it is telling about the team explorer, how it will be working, what is output window, what is error list. So these are all things are available here. Okay, so even you can see to run the program you can use control plus F5 or debug to start without debugging menu, and F5 to debug. So this is without debugging and this is for debugging. Okay, so now if I open here source file, you can see the project name whichever I have given, it has took the same name to write the program, right? So now what I will do, I'm not interested in all this content, so I'll remove this stuff. Okay, I don't want this stuff. So now I will do one thing. Anyhow, you already know that what do you mean by a return type. Okay, so if I'm using here integer, it should have a return type like return 0 or something. So what I will do, I'll write here void main which doesn't return anything. Okay, and here I'll remove this std out. Okay, so std I'm not using. So what I want to do then, if I'm not writing that option, so you have a flexibility here. What you can do is you can write using using namespace. Okay, so you can see that IntelliSense already showing you what you have to do. So now you can see your program error has been gone. So let's suppose I want to execute this program. This is a very basic program actually which we have discussed in the beginning of the sessions. So this is my first program like long time ago, but I'm not interested to do this one. But anyhow, when I press Ctrl plus F5, automatically it will display you the output whatever it is written here. Like you can see that hello world here. Fine. So now our task is not this. Now what we are going to do, first of all, let's try to understand. Okay, so what do you mean by a class? Okay, so generally a class is a blueprint of what different types of objects. Okay, because if in general if you want to understand, let's suppose take a real-time example. I will take a class where in a college we have different classes, right? And every class has one name. So that class, like for example, consider I'm in year 1, year 2, year 3 based on your class type. When you enter to the class or when you go to the class, you will find what? The class name, and inside the class you will find the different types of attributes. So what are the attributes there in the class, or the what are the properties of that class? You have a screen to display the content, to run the program or to write the program, and also you have projectors, you have the different types of seating, and you have different types of table arrangements, and all those things are called properties of that class. So if someone asks me like I'm searching for something about some information about some projector, so that projector is available only in that class. So what I have to do, I can tell him that you can go to that class to see that projector, okay? But it is not possible that he will go directly and he can see the projector there. He need to get a what? Access. That access is something like preparing or creating an object through which he will get the access to that class. Through that object he can bring that data, okay? So in simple words, one peon or someone will come along with him and he will take him there, and peon is playing the role of an object here, and he will allow him to enter there, and he will explain into the class whoever is standing there, and he will tell that this so and so person came to see the projector, correct? So this is the same way, like every class, when we are defining every all the components, all the properties will be at one place in that class, okay? So let's say I'm writing a few two or three lines in a simple manner. So class is a blueprint, okay? Blueprint of the object, or properties of the object, whatever you write, okay? So you can write object, that is enough, okay? Object can be anything. So okay, so generally blueprint, what we will call blueprint, is something like it has all the attributes, all the functions or behaviors which are required, and it will all be defined by one class name, okay? I will say the name like cinema, okay? So this is a type of class, and in that you have their own properties, if different functions are there inside it, okay? So I can write here, it groups the data which is of the attributes and the functions that are, okay, and the functions that are available in that object, okay? So this is how generally we can do, okay? So these are all what we have here, okay? Generally we call it as what is an object. If you call object is a real-time entity which is alive, means which we can, for example, I can say the human being who is alive, and a person who is not alive is something like he is not a person, correct? So it's a thing. So a person or a thing, we can define this one as a object, but that considered it has the mandatory is what, it should have some properties, okay? Fine. So this is all about this. So we call attributes as the data members, okay? So what are the attributes? Attributes, okay? So let's say attributes of a person, like a name, age, size, country, email, those are all what? Attributes, okay? So these are called it as what we call generally in before object oriented programming. If I want to define a name, what you will write? String variable equal to some name. Suppose I want to define a age, you will write what? Integer age equal to some age. I mean some number you will enter, right? So in this way these are all called as attributes. So these are all out, these are what we call variables. So these are variables that represent the state, that represent the object. That is enough, right? That represent the object. I think this is enough for us. Now functions, right? So what do you mean by a function? Okay, see, generally, like whenever we are discussing about the functions, print function or get ch function or cleared screen function, okay? So like that there are many functions. Even you see print, see out, see in, these are all the different keywords and they have some functionalities. So in simple words, what I can say, function is something which is used to perform some task. Okay, suppose I have a on my screen, if you can see, this is a run command. I'm typing CALC. It's a function. Okay, if I type it and press enter, you can see the calculator on my screen. So some functionality has been written behind that keyword. So whenever I use that calc, automatically calculator is open. So functions are also of two types. Okay, so functions generally we call it as a sub program. Okay, with a self-contained block of statement to perform some task. So I will write it. Let's do that one. It is a self-contained block of statements that are used to perform a particular task. Okay, so generally this function, whenever we say function and procedure, there are actually two types. These are all, both are called as what, sub programs. Okay, and also we call this one as a, it is a sub program, right? We call this one also as a sub program. Okay, let me make a multi comment line, so you all know this one, I hope. So we can write here multi comment line. So it is a sub program in which after performing a task, it should return a value. It should return a value. So whenever it is returning a value, then it is called as a what, function. If it is not returning a value, okay, so this is a function which is a part of what, subprogram, remember. So subprogram is a self-contained block of statement. Okay, anyhow, I'll do one thing. I'll remove this line from here, control X, and I will place this one at the beginning. Okay, so that it will be easier to understand like what is a subprogram. So inside a subprogram we have a function as well as we have what, procedure. I hope this should be clear. Okay, so this is a procedure, right? Now it is a subprogram in which after performing a task, okay, it should return a value. Same way, see, this is also the same thing. Actually this is also a subprogram, correct? This is also a subprogram, but only difference is it will not return any value. It will not return any value. Generally we can use, I can say, the default uh, function, like we write void main, which doesn't return any type. If you write integer main, integer is like, it has to return a value which is of integer type. Okay, so these things you have to remember. Now next one, see, we have to, whenever we are speaking about this type of programming, that is object oriented programming, we have to discuss about a concept again called as encapsulation. Okay, encapsulation. So very important, try to understand this. So what is encapsulation is, so we have a different access specifiers internally which are used by the programs. Okay, so we can call generally in one line, encapsulation is something like hiding of details from the end user and performing a task. Okay, so there are separate access specifiers like private, public. Okay, so these are like what, used to hide some information from the users. Okay, so let me write that. So here we can say, in object oriented programming we use public and private. These are access specifiers. Okay, private access specifiers, okay, to access specifiers to provide the data security. So what will happen in object oriented programming, the information is hidden from the end user and only it will show what required to the user. Okay, so based on the requirement of the user, that process will be done. Example, I can say one simple example. Let's say a car. Okay, A car is the designed product. Everyone knows how to drive a car. They know the basic things, how to fill the petrol, how to fill the air in the tires, and some examples, some simple things. But when you go to the technical requirements, you don't know. So these are all what hidden behind the scenes. So those data which is hidden, so those are what encapsulations. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Okay, this is called an encapsulating the data. Okay, so let's say one we will start one program to understand how this will work. Okay, so I will take one more library here, which is because I want to use the string type of data, so I can type here string.h. Okay, so here I can use string because it is Visual Studio, but if you are maybe if you are doing in any other interfaces in other programming applications, you may require to use that string.h or iostream.h. Okay, dot h is something like an header file. So now let me remove this. Okay, I'm not interested in this one. So let's start the program. I'll say class student. So remember, and also whenever we are doing any program for the classes, make sure you are using the first letter of the class name as capital. So this is something like the naming conventions which are mandatory or which are important to follow. If I use a small letter also it will work. This is not that compulsory that you should use capital, but this is a standard that we used to follow. We have to use the first letter as the capital letter, and whenever you can see the first letters as capital, blindly you can say that is a class. Okay, and the second letter of the word, for example I'll say generally I will take some other class like print line. Okay, so maybe inside that you may have print in small, L should be capital in some other places. Okay, so let me take, if not, if you go to Java. Okay, so in the Java also we write next int. So next will be small letter, int will be capital, means it's a continuation word, but the letter next and int, so these two are different words which are combined, but int where I will be capital. So that is the method of that class. Okay, method of that class or the object. Okay, we will use that one, we'll see later. So let's consider I declared the class student. Okay, now what I will do, I will take this one as the you can define it as the access specifier. Okay, we can define one access specifier for this. Okay, so which access specifier will take? Let's suppose I'll take a private access specifier. So what is a private access specifier? Whatever we declare inside the class student, those will be available only in the student. Okay, means here whatever we write, it is hidden from the other classes or other objects. Let's say I'll write here string name. This is one variable. I'll declare another variable. Suppose I'll declare here rule number. So this is called camel case. Okay, so better to follow, so it will give you the good look and feel for the program. Okay, next access specifier is public. The word itself says public is something like what? A variable, sorry, a keyword under which whatever you write will be accessible to the external world. Okay, I mean external world in the sense the other classes also you can access, or outside of the class also you can access directly. Okay, let's take here student. I'm declaring a student, so here let's write here string. Okay, and I'm declaring parameter here n and another parameter r. Two parameters I have declared. Now inside this student class, okay, and also please remember one more thing here, the class name and the name of the method is same. So this is called a constructor. Okay, this is called a constructor program. So whenever there is a class name, okay, whenever there is a class name along with the other parameters, so it is a parameterized constructor. And remember, if it is a normal method, it might be here void some name. Okay, but if you can see, here there is a issue in this one. But whenever you are using constructor, you see the error it came, member function with the same name as this class must be a constructor. It says that it is a constructor. Okay, it should be a constructor, but it should not be a method. If you consider it as a method, so it should not be similar as your class name. Okay, so then it could work, right? So what we can do now is, like for example, now according to this requirement here, we are taking the constructor only. Okay, we are not taking any method, constructor. Now let's write here name equal to n. Okay, so name is my class variable which I'm assigning to the parameter. Okay, so next one is what we have, rule number, which is again I have taken here what, r. Okay, now after entering this, let me write here cout constructor creating a record for the given variables. Okay, so this is how it will create. So what are the variables it is creating for? One is name, right? So most probably it is doing the declaration for name, as well as you can put rule number also if you want. Okay, so let's do one thing. I will put here NL. Okay, so even you can put the same name even for another one. If I want to take, I can use that one also. How? Let's suppose we'll do one thing. I will take here slash n, which is for the new line. Okay, let me write here again a slash n. Okay, then I will write here rule number, which is a rule number. Okay, rule number, then again NL. So n should be what, capital, right? So this should be accordingly, this should be very similar to the declaration whatever you have done. Now I have completed the constructor. Okay, constructor, what it will do, whenever an object is created for the student, this constructor will be called automatically. Okay, so if someone is coming from the basic programming, just for them I'm telling you another small update here, that generally a class student, what we do, we create a object and we call the methods whatever we created. It is something like an example, we have a pet dog at home. So this is our pet dog. So what generally we do, we used to call it to have a food or anything. So this is something like that. But if you go for the dogs on the street, you throw something, they will come early. I mean, they will be ready there to catch it up. The reason is the object, as soon as it is created, they're ready to capture. So this is something like your constructor. But if you go to the normal methods, so you will create one normal method which is not a constructor. Okay, and it should be under which class, under public class. Okay, so what I can do now, so I'll try to create a public normal method for this one. So let me create, so void, which is a return type which doesn't return anything, display info. This is my method. You can see now the name of the method is different, right? Name of the method is different. Now let's write cout. Okay, I want to display some information here. So let's say student name. So what could be the student name you want to give? We can give here name. So name here and then NL over. So same way we can take any number of variables here. So let me copy this, I'll paste here and I'll paste here one more time. Okay, so let's say I'll give here rule number. Okay, I want to display what is there in the rule number. Okay, I can give here what is my variable name, rule number. So this is my variable name, right? So this all two have been displayed and also defined. Now as we were discussing in the beginning, that we are having a constructor as well as a destructor. Okay, see now the new object oriented programming languages like .NET and Java, they have a concept called as garbage collector. Okay, so let me do one thing. First of all, I'll write one small line for you, that whenever we define a constructor, okay, constructor, the main concept is what? The main concept is it will increase the speed of the program, as it is not required to call the methods of the class methods of the class manually. You no need to call it manually. Okay, so you can call that or methods automatically. It means what? A constructor method, a constructor is a special procedure, okay, which is called automatically whenever an object is initiated. So just you will initiate the object, the constructor will come. So constructor coming, and it is providing some memory block and using that object, and it is loading the data and displaying the information. But what is another case is, after loading the data, that object memory value is loaded with some information. So your job is what now? You have to clear the data also. So we use what here? Destructor. So destructors, generally we use a trill symbol to remove the memory, to make the entry of the memory. So we can use what? Clean up the object, or clean up when the object goes out of scope. That is, what is that? When program has completed execution and usage of that object. So that object will be freed out. Okay, that object will be freed, and we can use that object for the other requirements. Okay, so in this way, what will happen? We can save our memory, right? So next one. So I created the display info. So here I created constructor, I created a normal method. So this is what? Parameterized constructor. Let me write this one also. This is parameterized constructor. Okay, constructor. Because why? These are called parameter. That's why we call parameterized constructor. Let's suppose if I use here, okay, if I don't write anything, and if I write here something like this, let's say I'm writing another one. Okay, I'm writing just a student, nothing inside it, and I'm opening this method, and I can put these two methods inside this. Okay, so what is this called as? This is called as what? Default constructor. Remember, okay, this is called as default constructor. But anyhow, this is not the constructor program this time. I'm just explaining you what actually we are doing with the class program. So we will discuss this one in the next program or next video. Okay, so let's say I'm going with the parameterized constructor and a normal method, right? Now I have finished the program of defining the class, have done. Now remember, we all know that without a main program no application will run. So we have to create a main to access the program and to execute the information. Okay, so let's write here. I'll write a program. Okay, I'm taking, you can see now I have given here integer main, right? So main I declared, so automatically now the program is valid. So always remember, without main the program never be valid. Okay, so let's say, what is my class name? My class name is student, correct? My class name is student. So you can't execute the data directly, so you have to declare the object for the student. Then after declaring the student, as soon as I declare the object, S1 is the object for the student. But if you go to any other object oriented programming languages like Java and C, now .NET, you want to create a object, you have to write student S1 equal to new student, then only that object has been created. Okay, so now here this object is created, and now I have to instantiate or initiate the values here. Okay, object has been created and instantiated. Now I have to add the values. So what are the values? I have to prepare, I have to pass some value for string and the pass value for roll number. So what I will do, I'll write here something like rose apple, and then I have to pass some age, that rule number. Okay, so I'll give something like 234. This is the rule number. Finish. So this automatically this will run. See, I'm not calling this one, I'm just creating the object. As soon as I create object, this person is already waiting for this data. If you don't write this, it will throw an error. Okay, so that's the reason we have written here. Now what I will do, my object name is s1, so I have to use this dot to access this display info. Remember, this is your public data, that's why you can call this one outside of the main. Okay, so this is the only thing you have to remember always. Okay, but if let's say this is a return 0. Okay, now let's suppose I will make this one under private again. Let me write here private. What will happen now? Now as soon as I write it in a private, okay, so let's do one thing. Let me take this method directly, if not from here. I'll take this method control X and I will put it into here. Okay, so the problem what will happen, you can't call this method here. You can see now student info is inaccessible. It means what? Whenever the data is under private access specifier, you can't use it. Okay, I'm just making control Z to take it back to the public information. Okay, now I have written return 0 because I have used here integer main. Suppose I used here void main, and then that time you no need to put any return 0. Fine. So this is generally used whenever you have any destructor. Okay, so this is a requirement generally, like we can hold the data for some time here. Okay, so this is for what? Calling a member function. This is a calling a member function here. Okay, now okay, let me go with the integer here. Right, now I'll write here return 0. Okay, suppose I have written return 0. Right, now we return the destructor. So when the destructor should be clean, so where is the destructor? Still the destructor is not there, right? I told you that destructor should be there to clear the memory. Okay, now what I want to do, I have to include the destructor. So destructor should be what? Using trail operator, you have to use the class name student. That's it. Now this is our destructor. Okay, now inside this you can write here anything to just understand. Okay, like I write here destructor called and cleans the memory, something. Okay, whatever our object, that's a better option, right? So you can put here anything. So I'll write here just name, and I can put here NL. Okay, so we have to put here one more less than, right? So generally this is how your program will run. So to execute, control key, press F5. This is how generally the program will run. Okay, now you can see constructor creating a record for the given variables. Here I have given name, that is rose apple, and rule number. So generally if you don't want, means this has been created, these two data, to show it that's just what we have written. Okay, I'll do one thing to provide some separation. We can write here cout, just put some line, so that what will happen, it will separate with the other outputs. So let me run again. Okay, so here you can see now, so here rose apple, and then after this, okay, let me do one more thing. I want the other data should be in the new line. Okay, so let's run again. Now you can see, so student name rose apple, rule number, destructor called clean up the memory. Okay, so here the rose apple has been cleared from the name, so this is how it has been shown here. Okay? So this is one program, so how you can practice. So you can stop the video and you can practice it, right?